Hello YouTubers, this is being shot live of course, which means you may overhear the kids that I have in the house today. But the ultimate thing I'm trying to show you here is that I have a USB device plugged into the back of my SNES Classic, and it's preloaded of course with plenty of games which I can easily change. So I'm just going to set this up now to show you what I've got. So what you're looking at is a standard SNES Mini that's been modified using Hatchie. A USB power supply, that's just standard USB micro. A small on-the-go adapter. This is a micro USB male port that's going to go into the back of the SNES Mini. And of course that's a female port which allows the power to pass through like this. But the nice thing about this on-the-go adapter is that it's nice and compact, and it has a female USB connector there to plug in a micro SD card, a little micro SD card adapter. So you can see here I'm using a Philips 32GB micro SD card, and I'm using a micro SD card adapter. I'm not sure where this one came from, but it's nice and compact and it works, more importantly. So I'll just plug that in. So this is the size of my 32GB USB expansion, and I just pop that in the back there, nice and careful. It does move about a bit. So what I've been tending to do is I get a little bit of this this blue tack. It's called here in the UK. I'm not sure what it's called globally, but blue tack is what we call it. So, and I just put it there just to help secure, so it doesn't move too much. But there we go. So there we have it. It's plugged in the back. First of all, I'm going to boot it without the micro SD, just so you can see where it boots to. So we get a Hatchie splash screen there, and then what you're looking at is the standard 21 SNES games. If you look up here, it does actually mention it's a modded system, which is great. But it's also got all of the save game files from my original. So the main purpose of this is just to show you that without any expansion, any USB expansion, it just plays as a standard SNES Mini would play. Now when I modified this, I made sure to modify it on top of existing modifications. So all of the usual things where you can press down and select to get back to the menu, which is just a shortcut for the reset button on the SNES. That still works. That's really cool. So there it is, 21 games. But of course you'll be more interested in the USB expansion here, so I'm just going to turn it off, and then I'm going to insert the micro SD card. There we go, and I'll switch it back on. So while it's booting, it detects that there is content on the micro SD card, and instead of booting to the SNES, it boots directly to the USB, or pulls the content from the USB anyway. The update since last time is that, well, if it did actually boot to it, it's all live. So please excuse me, maybe I haven't seated it incorrectly. I did actually have this problem when I first booted it, but it could just be a dodgy drive. Okay. I understand how Steve Jobs felt when he was going live on stage, but let's see what happens. Okay. I'll repeat what I did initially, which was just to plug one in that isn't that micro USB adapter. This is just a SanDisk 16 gig. So in we go. This only has a couple of games on it, but I'm just wanting to show that it's nothing to do with the SNES. It's obviously my micro SD adapter that needs to be. So there you can see they are games on the USB drive. You're not seeing anything that's on the internal drive. So I'm just going to shut that down. In fact, this is kind of cool because it's one of these things where maybe you have to blow on the card or on the card reader there. So let me just plug that back in. I think what I might do is I might get a small USB storage device, so I'm not having to mess about with this. Just take away the blue tack for now. This is great, isn't it? You're only supposed to be able to put these in one way, so just try one more time before we back out and do something a bit different here. I guess this is the great thing about going live. You run the risk of things going wrong, but at least you can see it goes wrong for me as well. Good, good, good. Excellent stuff. So what I'm showing you now is it has booted, which is great news. I just actually had entered a folder. So what I'll do is I'll come back out, all the way out, showing you that occasionally we do get these little errors. Seems to be persisting. I'm just taking the power away because clearly it had crashed. I would say that the modification, if you've tried Hakchi 2, which was written by Cluster M, that was incredibly stable, incredibly finished actually and well polished. And this particular mod is still work in progress. They're getting there, but the one thing that I wanted to show you is I think they're there. I think they're at the point where they've got all the features that are needed. They just need to get the stability. They need to get it behaving a lot better. Just turn the sound down here a little bit. So in the root, all the files and folders have been created using Hakchi 2.21F, which was created by Dan the Man. It has the ability now to export the games to a USB device or to an external folder, which is really great news because I've just got a load of shmups, SNES ones. I've got my NES Classic. This is something I've not tried yet. I copied the NES Classic file to this, so hopefully that will work. I've got some of my favourite games as well, such as Super Mario All Stars, Mario World. And then more importantly, we've got folders. We've got folders on the USB drive. So very much like the internal system, here they are, these folders at the end. So if I want, I can boot a 32X game. Let's try, I don't know, Virtual Racing. Very lucky that these are starting first time because again, I've not been through every game to check that they work. I've just made sure that the file names don't contain open brackets or parentheses, as the people in the States like to call them. But everything works very well. I mean, that's something they're going to have to patch. They're going to have to make it possible that you can use brackets in the file names because, you know, it's impossible for people who are just dragging and dropping and not looking, dumping 100 games on there, dumping 1,000 games on there. You don't want to be going through all 1,000 games to check that there's no open and close brackets anywhere in the file name. So this is a SNES Mini running a 3DX title. Yeah, working very well. As you can see, there's no issues there. So 32X title's working. Depending on what modules you install before you actually do the USB hack on top of Hakchi, depending on what modules you've got, depends on what you can run. I installed quite a lot, not everything, but even PlayStation 1 were put on there as well. So again, all these games work. I think I've got a guy at work called Barry who wanted to know if Star Wars works. And as you can see, Star Wars is booting there. So that's 32X games covered. They're all loading. I will just quickly go through some of the SNES games. Something I just put on this morning, actually. It's been a long time since I played this game. We all love a shmup. So clearly that's working, and the reset's working as well. I guess I could save these states if I wanted to. I'm going to try that last, I think, because I've got a feeling that might not work still. So let me go into the folders. We've already tested 32X. Let's test a Mega Drive game. Why not test Outrun? It's one of my favourites from the 80s.
Get ready.
Now, what I'm really looking forward to is the use of USB controllers, because I'd really like to use a Mega Drive or a Genesis controller on this game. In fact, that goes for every game. I mean, it's better playing the game with the original controller. I'm sure you'd agree. So just gear that. So Mega Drive games seem to be working. I'll just boot some of the big favourites. First time I've booted Sonic 3. Obviously working. So I'll come out of that. And next up is N64. Now again, I've got to sort out the folder names. I didn't go through them and make sure that they were all named correctly. Or at least, in all honesty, I thought I did. But hey, maybe there's another glitch there. I've recently sorted these file names out because they did have brackets in, so I think it should work now. Excellent stuff. And as a special treat, I'll plug in a better joypad. Okay, so I've got myself this. I'll just unplug the SNES pad. And let's see how quickly and easily this works. That's quite good. So the analog stick's working immediately. I might have a time attack. Yeah, I think it was one of my favourites was on the Queen. Mute City 2. Bit of slowdown here, unfortunately. Obviously the device is quite low powered, but it should be good enough to run these. Wow, that is nice. That feels good. Nice and fast as well. It's just my controlling really. I'm not great. I seem to remember the boost on this was quite harsh if you were not in control of your vehicle. There we go. So again, all this is via USB. Hey! I did that early. So the nice thing about these controllers is if you press the home button, it does reset. I'm not sure about games such as GoldenEye. I think that runs quite slow. Mario Kart doesn't run too bad, I don't think. So I think the delay that you see when it's loading is the fact that it's pulling, 4 megabytes or whatever the file size is off the USB. I'm sure there'd be a bigger delay with larger games.
Select your playlist to go.
Of course, all these games could be played on the standard SNES Mini because, 300 megabytes was enough to hold these files. I feel there's a bit of slowdown here. Or maybe it's just the fact I've chosen 50cc. Just come out of that. So I think the big question is, will it load really large titles? I don't currently have anything on there that's that size, but I do have the PlayStation module on there. So I think the next task is to get a PlayStation ISO and see how that goes. A couple more categories. We have NES titles. So one of my wife's favourites was Nemo, Dream Master. Of course, I'm playing with this pad. I could play with an NES pad, I guess. So let's just put this to one side. Put the SNES one to one side. And I'll just go get my NES pad. Okay, just had to dig it out of the cupboard. So this was a cheap NES pad from China, and I basically just put an official original NES from the good old 80s in there. So as you can see, the game is now running fine with a standard Nintendo pad from the 80s. Look at that. Now I think this is using RetroArch, so obviously you'd be able to go into the settings, and if you really wanted to, you could change the aspect ratio so you get more of a more of a full screen. Okay, so I'm just going to come out of this game. It's a lot of instructions at the start. So all the NES games work through RetroArch, but I think the question that I've got is, in fact let's try PC Engine just before we try the NES Classic itself. Let's try Bonk. Yeah, I think we can say that Bonk is working, so that's the PC Engine working fine. And again, if I wanted to save, I'd do that and press Y, but this pad doesn't have a Y. So that's one of the reasons why when I'm playing with this pad, I would have preferred it if the actual NES Classic was working. Let's see. It seemed to reset the console. but will it come back to NES Classic? I don't think it has. No, it has not. So whatever the mod for this, it probably needs updating in order to support this particular boot into USB. So let me come out of this. Put this back. So this is great. Effectively what it means is, you know, if you've got a 32 gig stick or card, you can fill it up with as many ROMs as possible. So that's excellent and really good. Of course all these should work. Winner winner chicken dinner. Let's just check if the save works, because I know that I did have issues previously with them. So I've made a save of Mortal Kombat there, and that should go onto the SD card. I will also make a save of... Yeah, let's make a save of Sonic. Again, these are running off the RetroArch, so try Sonic 2. Okay. So I think one of the issues that's still open, if I just get in here, when you save state, put that in there. There we go. So when you save state and put it in there, we'd imagine that you'd be able to resume the game, which I've just started a new one. But if we go back and try and resume the Sonic 2 game, I don't think it does so successfully. So if I... Oh, it did. Great, so that seems to have been fixed. So it looks as if now it's really working about as well as the original Hachi 2 could. With the exception that some of the mods are incompatible. So hopefully those mods will be updated by Dan the Man, who's doing a great job. Yeah, big props to everyone that's been involved in this. There are quite a lot of names on the scene, but one in particular, which I want to thank, because it looks like he's been doing most of the work. So obviously Mad Monkey is the original author of Hachi. And then we had Cluster M come along and make a nice user interface for Hachi 2. Hachi 2 is just a user interface from what I've read. And of course, I say just a user interface, but it is it's obviously critical that every good tool has a nice easy way of using it. So I'm just switching now to my Surface. Okay. So this is Hachi 2 F. So what we do is instead, if I try to connect via FTP, that should fail. Let's have a look. It'd be nice if it didn't. But I get the feeling that they've not enabled this yet. No, so you pretty much lose a lot of the functionality of Hachi 2 in terms of transferring to the internal memory. But of course, if you've got a USB drive, then the idea is you're not wanting to use the internal memory, you wanted to use the external here. Just turn that off a second. So there we go, it's powering down. So the nice thing is now I just transfer this. No FTP, so let's get rid of that. So we're stuck here with a special version of Hachi, which was written by Dan the Man. And this special version comes with KMFD Manic Yep, he's really the guy to thank for the USB mod. He was working on Mad Monkey's code. Mad Monkey obviously is the original person to thank, but then after that, KMFD Manic, because he's been putting everything together and working with Dan the Man and everybody else. He does thank everybody here who's been involved, including all the testers and all the people who are giving feedback. I think it is important that if you've got some technical ability, you know, you should try to assist these guys. It can be painful. It's taken me at least 16 hours this week in the evenings just testing these things out and giving feedback, but it's great. This page here, it's on GitHub. I guess if you do a quick search for KMFD Manic and then put something like USB host, you'll find him. So there it is. I'll put actually when I finish this video, I'll go back and put the link underneath. So on the SD card, we have, I've got a section of ROMs here on the SD card, but that's not necessary. All you really need is the Hatchie folder. And inside Hatchie, I'll get rid of the old because it's not needed now. Again, I've done this 1,000, well, okay, maybe not, maybe a few dozen times, but all you really need on the SD card is a Hatchie folder with the games and the saves. The saves are where all your save state go for all those external games that you're going to have. And the games itself, this is basically all the game folders that you normally find in Hatchie. It used to be, until very recently, the last few days, that you'd have to manually create all these folders yourself, manually make sure that the desktop files had the correct path in them, using Notepad++, you can actually go in there and check these paths out, but you don't need to anymore. It's great. All you do is you create a Hatchie folder and then create a games and a saves folder in there, and then you can use Hatchie too. You're not using it to transfer the games to the internal SNES Mini. You basically lost the ability to do that when you flash the USB mod. But what you can do is you can hold down Shift and click on the synchronize, and then it allows you to export all of these games to a folder. And I basically just choose the folder direct to the SD card, although you could export them somewhere else. So let me just add a game and see what happens. This is something I am interested in doing. So I should have a lot of ROMs on. In fact, I've got some on here. So I've actually got ROMs on the external. So one of the games I will add that I don't currently have, I'm not really interested, but let's just put Alien 3 on there. Okay, it's picked up what it is. All I have to do is browse. Again, this folder, doesn't matter where it is on your computer, it just so happens it's on my SD card, but it doesn't matter where it is. Okay, so basically I've just added to there. I'm happy with that. Alien 3. I've also got selected in the settings under the folder structure the custom show folder manager every time. What that will do is when you shift and click on synchronize and you ask it where you want to export the games to, which I'm going to tell it I want to export it to the folder that the SNES uses externally. It says new games are in the unsorted folder. Sure enough, in the unsorted folder there's Alien 3. I'm going to put Alien 3 just in the root, and I will get rid of that. In fact, no, let me show you creating a new folder. So let's get rid of these. Yeah, let's get rid. So if you did have some new games, let's say you had some PlayStation games, you just do PS1, something like that. Where's that ended up? It's at the bottom here. You then be able to choose a folder icon for it. I might choose Neo Geo, or just choose one of these as a show that what it does. and then I'll transfer Alien 3 into that folder. Alien 3 into the PS1 folder. Don't have any ISOs at the moment, otherwise I'd use a PlayStation ISO. I'll say OK now, and hopefully it says the selected folder isn't empty, because what I'm trying to do is update the existing folder. It says it's done, which means what exactly? Alien 3 is HCJRC, so let me check if it actually copied. Hachi Games HCJR3. I'm not seeing it. No. So it looks like, and this is obviously going to be a request to Dan the Man or one of the team that can do this, but I can't just update the folders. I've got to get rid of them all, which seems dumb. So I can't export over the top of an existing setup. I guess I'd have to export separately to a completely different folder. Might as well create a new folder on my desktop and call it temp. It's up here. And then let's just export to that. Yeah. So now what it's doing is it's creating all the folder structure in temp. It says it's done. Actually opened it as well. So we should have in there that particular game, HCJRC. Is it there? Of course, it might have been there actually, because I put it in a folder, didn't I? I put it in this folder. Right. So the answer still is no, it will not overwrite an existing installation. But what I can do is take that folder, folder 6, which was my PS1 folder, and put it on the SD card. So maybe it's better to keep a copy actually on your machine and copy them across. Anyway, I don't need the temp folder anymore because we all know it can't overwrite an existing installation. Let's just see what that's done to my SNES Mini. Okay, so take the SD card out, put the SD card in the SNES Mini. Definitely need to get myself a slightly better setup here. And let's boot that. So now I'm going to be looking for the PS1 folder. So clearly that hasn't worked. And I think maybe it hasn't worked because there was something else I needed to copy over. Had I have just copied the entire contents of the temp folder that was on my desktop to the SD card, that would be fine. But, you know, if you're adding one game, you shouldn't have to remove all the other games, should you? No. So let's go back and have a look at that temp folder which I've got in my recycle bin. Bringing the temp folder back out, looking in the games folder. There's obviously something else that's needed. You know what? I can't imagine what it is. Okay, fair enough. I'll delete all the games off the SD card, and I'll copy all the games over from the temp folder. So now I've got an empty games folder on the SD card. This is what was made. Put it on there. So obviously the creators need to do a better job of updating, you know, an existing. Can't be that difficult. If file name exists and it's no newer, just leave it alone and move on to the next. So while that's going, I'll just double check Alien 3 was there, yeah, and yeah, and I put it inside the PS1 folder. So when this does the export, it doesn't export the folder names that you give it, it exports 001, 002, 003, so on and so forth. Goes up to 006, and that must correspond to the 6 folders I have here. Okay, that's nearly done there. So fingers crossed now on the SD card I'm going to have myself that additional folder PS1 that should have the Alien 3 SNES ROM in. That looks good. So far so good. So as you can see, there's probably a little bit more work to do here. You can create folders, you can organise your ROMs, you can have very large ROMs. This is 32 gig, I'm sure I could fill it. But the export of the files and folders is still a little bit clunky. You can use Hakchi to do it, but it's not perfect. It won't overwrite an existing installation and just add the additional new files. It looks as if you have to completely export it to a clean folder structure and then copy them in. That's painful. That's painful. So, great stuff. Well, thank you very much for watching. I've got some food to eat, so I'll catch you on the flip side. It's Turbo Man out.